Hi, Epic Recaps here, and today I am going to explain to you a 2021 Western thriller titled, The Harder They Fall. If you want to be spoiled, keep watching. The movie begins and a young boy named Nat Love is about to have dinner with his parents when they receive a visit from an outlaw gang led by Rufus Buck. Nat's father recognizes Rufus, and pleads with him to leave his wife and son out of whatever grudge he holds against the senior Love. Rufus shoots his wife Eleanor in the chest before firing at him, and Nat is held down as he watches his parents die. Before leaving, Rufus carves a cross symbol into Nat's forehead. Years later in Salinas, Texas, Nat is now an outlaw himself, and targeting other outlaws, he tracks down a former gang member of Rufus's named Jesus Cortez. Cortez recognizes Nat, but before he can kill the man, Nat draws first and shoots Cortez dead. When the pastor appears out of hiding, Nat tells him to collect the $5,000 bounty for the dead man. Asking why Nat doesn't collect it for himself, he tells the holy man that he's worth $10,000 and takes his leave. Elsewhere, Nat's fellow gang members Bill Pickett and Jim Beckworth ambushes another gang called the Crimson Hoods, who's just robbed a bank. The pair fleece them of their cash and capture a member named Monroe Grimes, who taunts the two outlaws, as they don't realize whose money they have just stolen. At night, Nat travels to Douglastown and upon entering a saloon, he's stopped at the door and is instructed to hand in his guns. Introducing herself as Cuffy, Nat wonders why someone so slight is guarding the doors, but she quickly changes his opinion when she disarms the next patrons with ease. A woman named Mary Fields makes her way to the stage to perform. Afterward, she approaches Nat, and it's revealed that the pair are former lovers. Nat and Mary share a kiss, but she only does it to remind him of what it was, before slugging him in the face for leaving her. Picking himself up, Cuffy instructs him to the second-floor room where he finds Mary. The two passionately reunite, but are interrupted by Bill, who tells Nat he has something urgent to show him. Bill updates him about the recent heist, and Nat immediately prepares to shoot Grimes, but stops to listen to what he has to say. Grimes tells Nat that Rufus, who's behind bars, is set to be released but doesn't know where or how. The only thing he's sure of, is that the notorious leader will be coming for his money, the money stolen from the Crimson Hoods. Nat tells the man to exhale, and then shoots him. Looking at his free hands, Grimes is instructed to leave, as Nat's crew is left to wonder about his next move. Meanwhile, Rufus's gang led by Trudy Smith and sharpshooter Cherokee Bill ride their horses to the tracks to await the train that is transporting Rufus. After infiltrating the cart, they easily disarm the captain's son and take him hostage. The gang approaches the train car holding Rufus, but the captain refuses entry to the outlaws. Trudy takes matters into her own hands and begins to shoot at the young boy, which gains them entry. Telling them the keys are back in town, Trudy reveals that the corrupt captain had wiped out an entire town, women and children included, to get his hands on silver. Calling it some unscrupulous shit, she reveals that the governor will pardon Rufus's gang in exchange for killing the captain. Out of options, the captain releases Rufus from captivity. Asking who can drive the train, the leader orders the gang to kill all the men except the young boy. Sitting on horseback, Rufus and his gang look to take back what is theirs. Back at the saloon, Marshal Bass Reeves drops in for a visit and approaches Nat at a nearby table to arrest him. Inviting himself to a drink, Reeves tries to get information from the elusive Nat, who throws the drink in his face. After a brief standoff, Nat complies and leaves in cuffs with Reeves. Elsewhere, Rufus and his gang arrive in Redwood and head straight to the bank, where they learn that the money they were expecting from the Crimson Hoods never arrived. Informed that the town's account only has $2,500, they leave in search of the town sheriff Wiley Esco. Feasting on steak, Wiley is informed of Rufus's return and the men confront each other outside. While Rufus was away, Wiley has been squandering the town's money on personal expenses, including his golden teeth. Rufus beats Wiley in front of the townspeople and knocking out some of his teeth, he's ordered to leave town. In the meantime, Reeves and Nat travel to the outskirts of town where it's revealed that the arrest was a farce, and the unexpected pair have teamed up to take down Rufus. The men are caught off guard when Nat's gang appears, having followed them after their staged confrontation. Nat tells them he didn't want them involved, but they choose to stick around to help him settle the score. Back at Redwood, Trudy enters her old saloon and admonishes Rufus for having left things in Wiley's care. Telling her that her leadership was needed for keeping the other gangs in line, he reassures her that they're back in business. Outside, she and Cherokee address the townsfolk and informs them that Wiley has sold their lands to the highest bidder, but the gang is here to prevent it, provided they pay Rufus tax money. When one man expresses defiance, Rufus appears and guns him down in front of everyone, setting an example for anyone who refuses to pay. On the other side of town, Nat and his gang find Wiley riding through the woods and capture him. He informs them that Rufus is in Redwood and wants to save the town but has no money. When gunslinger Jim accuses Wiley of lying, the sheriff tells him the enemy of his enemy is his friend. Nat agrees to let him live and tells him to disappear by morning. That night, Mary suggests she go into town and scope out the place before they attempt to infiltrate it. Nat refuses to let her go, but Mary is set on going through with it. He attempts to propose to her with his mother's ring, but Mary declines, telling him after the dust settles, she plans to leave. Mary rides into town and gets stopped by Rufus's men. Trudy appears and asking what business she has in Redwood. Mary tells her she's heard Rufus is in charge and has a business proposal. Trudy takes her to Rufus and Mary denounces her association with Nat, offering to buy Trudy's saloon to make up for the money he's lost. Rufus doesn't buy her act and has Trudy knock her out and take her prisoner. As the sun rises, Nat knows Mary is in trouble and mulls his next move. Back in town, Trudy keeps watch over Mary and tells her the story about how she used to have a sister also named Mary who suffered from polio. A neighborhood girl named Hope would bully her and Mary, and one day threw an apple at them and caused Mary to fall and injure herself. Their father beat her for not protecting her sister, but when he went to Hope's house to beat her as well, Trudy's father and Hope's family were all horrified to find that Trudy got to Hope first and slit her throat. When a goon attempts to strangle Mary, Trudy instructs him to hold off. Later that night, leaves Mary in the middle of the road to await her rescuers. Just then, Nat and his gang ride into town as a triumphant Trudy looks on. Trudy is unfazed when Nat tells her Jim will blow the bowling hat off her pretty little head, and the two engage in a battle of wits. She agrees to take him to Rufus and instructs his men to stand down. Nat is brought in and receives a beatdown in front of Mary. A whistling Rufus appears and coming face to face with the boy he branded, he tells Nat he did it so he could recognize him in the future. Reminding Nat that he stole his money, he tells him he wants it all back, including interest. Nat laughs at the absurdity and wonders where he could get that kind of money. Rufus knows that Nat has made his living as an outlaw who robs other outlaws, and orders the young man to pull off a bank robbery to return what is owed to him, plus interest out of petty spite. Before leaving, Rufus gives Nat the knife he used to carve his face and tells him he has 3 days. Returning to his men, Nat tells them they have to rob a bank in Maysville, a predominantly white town, otherwise Mary dies. Nat comes up with a plan that requires Cuffy to put on a dress, which she reluctantly does for Mary. Arriving in town, the gang discovers the town is truly white in every sense. Entering the bank arm in arm, Nat and Cuffy are greeted by awkward stares. Cuffy makes her way to the wicket and is laughed at when she asks to make a withdrawal. Fumbling for her gun, she silences them when she manages to pull it out. Nat tells the bank manager he's only interested in the money and not dead bodies. Cuffy collects the cash and make their way out without hurting anyone, and flee when the sirens go off. Back at camp, the gang huddles around and surmises that Rufus will kill Mary once he gets his hands on the money. Just then, Wiley appears with a cart full of weapons and offering it to Nat. He hopes to eliminate Rufus and get his town back. From afar, a sniper detects the arrival of the wagon and alerts the guards below. Trudy observes Reeves as he approaches with 3 escorts behind him. Stopping the wagon, he unhitches his horse and sends him off as Cherokee approaches him. Meanwhile, Bill takes out a sniper and takes his position on the roof. Reeves motions for Cherokee to walk with him, and before he can dictate the terms of engagement, the wagon explodes, sending the citizens scattering back indoors. Cherokee aims his gun at Reeves, but is instructed by Rufus to put it down, just as Nat rides into town, and the men stare each other down. Nat makes his way down Main Street and Cuffy follows with the wagon full of money. Both sides pour into the street including Trudy, who arrives with Mary. Rufus, who remains inside, watches as Cherokee unhitches the horse, intended for Mary. When Nat calls him out for his cowardice, Jim appears behind Cherokee with a gun of his own. The men count down before firing, but Cherokee shoots first, hitting Jim in the face as the outlaws watch on. A gunfight ensues between both gangs, with Bill acting as a sniper from the roof. Nat bellows to Bill to shoot the wagon, which results in an explosion, sending the money into the air. A furious Trudy instructs her men to kill Mary, but they're taken out by Cuffy, who comes flying in. Mary, now free, goes after Trudy, and the ladies abandon their guns and brawl until Mary knocks Trudy out with the blunt end of a rifle. Nat shoots at the men from the center of Main Street and is shot by none other than Grimes, whom he let go earlier. Grimes instructs Nat to exhale, and is suddenly shot in the head by Reeves, who drags Nat to safety. Elsewhere, Wiley attempts to go after Rufus with his dynamite. Rufus tells him he always knew it was Wiley who gave him up and shoots the bag of explosives, blowing him up. The gang moves through town and eliminating most of Rufus's men. Bill and Cuffy enter the saloon to reload. Appearing from behind, Cherokee shoots Bill in the back and then in the chest. Holstering his gun for a redraw, Cuffy draws her gun faster and shoots him first before he can fire. Cherokee is shot in the throat and staggers outside before collapsing dead. With bodies everywhere, Nat and Rufus prepare for their final showdown. With his guns drawn, Nat enters the mansion and finds Rufus sitting at the bar unarmed. Prepared to kill him, Nat stops in his tracks when Rufus asks about his dad. When Nat tells him he was a good man, Rufus shares that his own father was an abusive drunk who walked out on him. After tracking him down, he discovered that his father changed his name to Love, revealing that Nat and he are half-brothers. He gave Nat the scar so that Rufus would remember his face when he inevitably came for him. When Nat tearfully tries to deny this as another one of Rufus's lies, Rufus tells him the best revenge was letting Nat live to become everything their father tried to run from. Calling him by Nathaniel Buck, Rufus doesn't let up until Nat gives in to his anger and finally kills him. Nat bends down and retrieves his mother's ring and closes Rufus's eyes shut. Outside, Mary asks if the devil's dead, and Nat answers with, "I don't know." Some time passes and the surviving friends buries Jim and Bill, adding another grave with Nat's name on it. A worried Mary is reassured by Reeves that in the eyes of the law, Nat is dead. Turning to Cuffy, it's revealed she's joined Reeves in law enforcement and bids a farewell to her lady. Mary orders Nat to mount up as they have lots of work to do, and the two ride off together, while a still alive Trudy watches them from a distance. Let us know your thoughts on the film in the comments below. If you want to watch another action-packed movie, check out the next recap, about a man who goes on a quest for revenge after losing the only family he's ever loved.